Presley, and I'd like to welcome you to the Donna Presley official YouTube channel. The truth about Elvis. And let me speak plainly, because this needs to be said after 48 years. A lot of people talk about Elvis Presley today as if they were the ones who truly knew him. But the people who speak the loudest are often the ones who saw him the least. I want to tell you where my understanding of Elvis comes from, and why some of the voices shaping his story were never in a position to define him at all. People ask me, Donna, how do you know what Elvis was really like? Well, my understanding doesn't come from documentaries or secondhand stories. It comes from my own life with him and from the people he trusted most. I spent time with him as a child and as a young woman, not as a fan, but as his cousin, inside the Presley family, in the places where he relaxed, laughed, and let the pressure fall away. And I had the voices that shaped the real Elvis. My grandmother, Minnie Mae, who lived with him at Graceland, and who he was the one that confided in when life grew heavy. Uncle Vernon, who carried the daily burdens and responsibilities that no one else saw. Aunt Delta, who also lived at Graceland and saw him privately, not just publicly. And my mother, Nash, who knew him as the same boy he had been long before fame touched him. Our family spoke to each other, not to gossip, not for attention, but to understand, to help, and to protect. That is where my picture of Elvis comes from the people who were actually there, who lived with him, worried for him, and loved him. Now let's look at where others get their understanding of Elvis, because it is not the same. Some people knew a moment, a period, a part of him, and somehow those brief windows have been treated as if they define his entire life. There are former partners who retailed very dramatic stories, late-night emergencies, and intimate details that were never meant to be made public. Those moments, they were private, deeply private. So why repeat them? Does it lift your status? Does it strengthen your place in history? Does it make you seem indispensable? Protecting someone means holding their vulnerable moments close, not turning them into entertainment. Love does not expose. Loyalty does not dramatize. And then there is Priscilla. Trust me, I'm not here to attack her. I'm here to speak plainly about something the public often overlooks. Priscilla's story of Elvis has shifted many times. Some interviews say she left because she wanted her own life. Others say she left because of other women. Some versions portray harmony. Others emphasize difficulty, different years, different projects, different tone. When a story shifts that often, you have to ask, is this memory or is it merely narrative? And there's another fact that people forget. Priscilla was not living with Elvis during the years when many of the most dramatic claims are being placed. She was not inside Graceland from 1973 onward. She did not witness his daily life. She was not part of the chapters she now comments on the most. Yet, she is still treated as the central authority on every aspect of his life, even the ones she wasn't present for. And when she labels Elvis an addict or blames Lisa's struggles on her father's genes, I believe we must pause. She is not a doctor. She did not diagnose him. So where does that certainty come from? And if everything is genetic, then how do we explain similar struggles in her other child? Life is far more complex than the explanations being placed on Elvis's. My point is simple. Priscilla's story is her story, but it is not the full truth of Elvis Presley. It is one window, not the house. And then there are the associates, particularly one man who has managed to position himself as an authority, Jerry Schilling. Jerry was around Elvis at certain times, close during some periods, and completely absent during others. But over the years, by appearing beside Priscilla, beside Lisa, and beside filmmakers, he has gradually been presented as the definitive interpreter of Elvis Presley. Authority does not come from being photographed with someone. It doesn't come from being quoted often. It comes from being present across a lifetime. Very few people had that. And then there's Lisa, and I say this with the utmost love and respect for her. Lisa was 9 years old when her father died. At 9, you feel everything deeply. Love, fear, loss. But you do not interpret adult pressures or adult medical issues. Children see moments. They do not see the full landscape. As Lisa grew older, her understanding of what happened to her father naturally came from the adults around her, especially her mother, and later from advisors, doctors, and media voices. So when people quote Lisa's later words about drugs or addiction, I think we must be honest. Those words did not come from a 9-year-old heart. They came from interpretations that were given to her as she grew. That does not question her love. It simply recognized the reality of childhood memory. Some of the Memphis Mafia were loyal. Some absolutely were not. And many of the men who claimed they saw Elvis high were not exactly sober or stable themselves. Perception through your own fog is not truth. And when some of those same men sold their stories and then later blamed the publisher, well, let's say it plainly, you made your choice. No one forced you to portray him. And finally, the media. Why do filmmakers keep choosing the most dramatic voices? Why do they return to the same people who shift their stories, reveal private moments, profit from exposure, or had limited presence in Elvis's life? Is it accuracy or is it sensationalism? Drama sells. Dignity doesn't trend. And Elvis has been treated as a storyline, not as a human being. People accuse me of sugarcoating Elvis. Let me make this clear. Telling the truth is not sugarcoating. Correcting exaggeration is not sugarcoating. Protecting someone's dignity is not sugarcoating. Sugarcoating is when you take something bad and make it sound better. What I'm doing is correcting things that were never true in the first place. Elvis was not an addict. He was not unstable. He was not the chaotic figure some have described. He was human. He had burdens and joy, responsibility and faith, and a family who loved him, and who still carry the truth of who he truly was. Elvis was more than the stories told about him. He was the man we lived with, worried for, laughed with, and loved. The truth about who he really was doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to the people who actually knew him, his family. And after all these years, that truth deserves its place again, without drama, without distortion, and without anyone rewriting the man he truly was. Please understand, I'm not trying to make Elvis into a saint. I'm not saying he was perfect. He wasn't. He made mistakes. He made bad choices at times because he was human, like all the rest of us. But he's been gone 48 years now, and he's still blessing lives. He's still making a difference in people's lives every single day, from 2 to 92. And people love and adore him for that. He was a human being, but he had dignity, and he did amazing things. He was touched by God. He was an ordinary person, but he was touched by God to do extraordinary things. So let's leave the drama, the bad thoughts, and the stories that are not true. Let's leave them out of this and let him have the dignity that he worked for, that he deserves. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. And until next time, God bless.